everyone. Welcome to the Readiness Bears package optimization effort. My name is Cody Ray. I am with Tech Scouting and Vetting with Small Business Consulting Corporation. We are part of the CCIT line of effort for the Air Force, Commercial Capabilities Integration, here to help you guys as you look to bring your technology to the service of the Air Force and help the Air Force work well together with you. We do have two subject matter experts who are going to be on the line with us today, Mr. Gibson and Jones. I'll be quiet for just a moment so you two gentlemen can say hello and introduce yourselves.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Master Sergeant Gibson, along with Tech Sergeant Jones. We're here to assist and provide responses to the questions that we have going forward to help streamline the process of coming up with a solution.
Fantastic. Thank you for taking the time to hop in and give us a date. Mr. Did the other SME want to stop in and say hi, or are you good?
Oh, hi, I'm Tech Sergeant Jones. I'm also here with Master Sergeant Gibson to also answer questions as well regarding this topic.
Very good. Appreciate you all taking the time out today and helping these companies get some answers to their questions as they decide about their submission process. As Joel mentioned earlier, just a moment ago, this meeting is being recorded. We have a disclaimer regarding Firefly's AI in the chat. That's just the app that we're using to record this. This information is going to be made public. Everything that's asked and said on here will be publicly available for other companies to see as well. We want to keep a level playing field for all of you and make sure no one company gets singled out, with special information. So just be aware of that. If you don't want to participate because of that, that's totally fine. You can certainly just sit and listen. Do be aware anything you put in the chat will be asked publicly and answered publicly. So again, the disclaimer is there. Dayton or Tim, if you get a chance to put the pre-release link into the chat, if there are any companies here that have not yet seen that, that will be available there. So you can read the actual solicitation yourself. But to you, the companies that are here, thank you so much for joining us today. We're very glad you're here. You're the reason why the CCIT division for Air Force exists. They've hired us at SBCC as an advisory and assistance service provider, short for ANAS, to help the federal government. We're hired by them to find tech that our warfighters need to be and remain superior. While we do go out and look for technologies that the military might find valuable, what we really like to do at SBCC is stay engaged with our customer, which is Global Strike and AETC at this moment, and find out what their problem sets are so that we can bring these specific problems to you, problems that they are ready and willing to put time, manpower, money behind to help find solutions. And so that's what we do. The military can be a very lucrative partner for you, the companies, but it can also be a long, difficult road. And we are, again, hired by, paid for by the government to make that process easier. We're a free service to the companies to help you as you try to navigate working with the Department of Defense. And we're here first and foremost to serve the Department of Defense and bring the technology that they need. The military is not designed, of course, to be a business entity. They're designed for defense and protection of our country and our interests. And so since they don't have that business savvy as their core qualities, we're here to kind of make that process smoother. So that's who we are. That's why we exist. And you have before you the slide, which gives a little bit of information what we're going to be talking about today. We do want to let you know that we're going to be operating today according to the guidance that AFWERX has given us. And so I want to be really clear here to help. We've seen this be an issue on other calls in the past, and we want to kind of help streamline this process by saying today's meeting is a meeting in the pre-release period And questions should be limited to specific information related to improving the understanding of the topic requirements. No questions are going to be allowed for advice or guidance on solution approach, nor may additional materials be submitted to the TPOC or the SME. To you companies, do be mindful of how you ask your questions. We want to make sure you protect your own proprietary information. And to our SMEs, if you do hear information in the questions that sounds like it could be proprietary in nature to the company, you're welcome to just ask that, so that we're not contributing to the company relaying information that they want to keep to themselves. Finally, before we get rolling here on our SMEs answering questions, let me just read briefly what it is that we're going to do today, and I hope this will be a help. The phase one effort, which is what this is to conduct a feasibility study with government stakeholders to assess your company's technology and to collaborate together to find a use case for which a prototype will later be developed in the phase two follow-on. So this is not a prototype phase. This is a feasibility study phase. During the feasibility study, we will collaboratively determine the specific application and thresholds and objectives that the technology needs to meet. The phase one proposal should be an explanation of your technology or solution to any commercial traction. You're essentially proposing a 6-month research project to assess your tech and work with the government customer to come up with a use case for it. And the specifics of how to adapt your solution will be listed in the follow-on phase two. So in a word, the phase one is a 6-month project and period of performance because it's essentially a research report. There's no prototyping. You're showing us the feasibility of your technology meeting one or more of the problem sets. And the award is up to $180,000. The phase two, or the prototype phase, is 2 years period of performance because it's obviously much more involved making an actual prototype. And since prototyping is more expensive and difficult, the award is up to $1.8 million. So try to keep your questions scoped in on the phase one effort. If you're not sure, and just ask your question and we'll let you know. Of course, our two SMEs will be only answering as they're able. So if the question revolves around any confidential information, they just won't be able to answer that. So I think that's all the introductory comments. I now want to go ahead and turn it over to Sergeant Gibson and Jones. Let them first begin to work through the questions that have come in prior to today's call. And then after that, you feel free to ask questions in the chat. There's a Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. Hit that if you want to ask questions. And as those come in, we'll try to get those to Sergeant Gibson and Jones for their input. So with that, I'll be quiet, sit back, and we'll listen to the subject matter experts go ahead and address us. And again, you two gentlemen may want to kind of level set, help everybody know what this effort is and what your goal is for this phase one feasibility study and what you guys are trying to get after. Then you can go ahead and start answering those questions. I'll turn it over to you, gentlemen.
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon again, everyone. Starting off, the overall goal is to have a software solution that can assist in streamlining the deployment process. A solution that can reduce the time required to pack and palletize assets, along with maximizing the space required for those selected assets from the time of the initial notification. A solution that can incorporate the dimensions and the weight of each asset to determine the best maximize space optimization. The overall for the company to provide the description of the testing and validation process of packing time and space of ISU 90s, the 4630 pallets, and the custom tire racks for deployment and redeployment. So I will go into the questions based off of that. Starting off, the first question was, what is a typical form factor of RSPs? There are several different types of models of the ISUs. Primarily, we use the ISU 90s and the 4630 pallets, which are approximately 180 inches and 88 by 88 inches. We use various different models. However, those are going to be the primary factors to determine what the solution will be based off of. Next question will be, do we have upper or lower limits on the dimensions and weight of the RSP containers? So usually there are typically weight requirements based on the difference of the ISUs. But for this situation, the ISU 90s are approximately 2,200 to 2,500 pounds empty. And then we have the upper limits of being 10,000 pounds when the assets are included into those RSPs. Question 3, do we have any placement restrictions? Yes, for RSPs, the containers are designed to be transported in an upright position. The lower portion is usually used for forklifts to be placed in order to carry those assets to and from where they need to go. So there are limits as far as primarily being upright. It is still possible for the majority of assets or the containers to have different functions, but primarily those assets are going to be upright. Question 4, how will our company get NSN and UTC data? NSN data will be accessed from FedLog, WebFlix, or commercially such as LogEquest. UTC data is not pertinent into optimizing the packing of the kits, as requirements are met by headquarter-driven data for packing. So that information will be provided based off of those sites that are Air Force managed. Question 5, how will our company get Air Force packing priorities? I did want to state if it's possible to get clarification as far as the packing priorities. However, those packing priorities are determined by headquarters of which NSNs or assets that will be taken during a given exercise. But we want to clarify more in detail exactly what the question is asking of us. Question number 6, will maintenance and load planning actions be provided by the Air Force? Yes, load planning is done by the logisticians and air transportation team for aircraft load planning. The sole purpose of optimization is to provide the MRSP section with real-time data with the assets on pallets and the capability to configure and change them based on mission requirements. Next question, will maintenance actions need to occur in the container or after it's unpacked? Does the government place favor on solutions that minimize touches on equipment requiring maintenance in the RSP? That is not in consideration at this point. The kits are managed by the MRSP section, so it is imperative that in any given time, maintenance needs an asset. The personnel for that section will be able to quickly identify exactly where that asset is based on the software outputs of that pallet configuration. So being able to utilize the software solution to identify exactly where that asset is if needed to be changed out. Next question, during phase 2, during our testing and validation, will we work with the government in physical loading or will it be virtual? Yes, select companies can involve physical testing or virtual to test to validate their product or technology. That will depend on the specific nature of the product and requirements based on that solution. Next question, will government assist in use cases development? Yes, again, access to the SMEs, myself or Tech Sergeant Jones or Sergeant Libet will be available to assist in use case development to provide additional insight on operational needs for follow-up. And then for the next question will be the government assist in deployment scenario development. Again, we have a team of individuals to help access the questions and answers for that particular time on the in development deployment scenario that they may have. Our next question, what is meant by activity tracking for pack out operations? Is it steps for the pallet to bin and is a sample data provided? This is basically a tracking board of the status of exactly the process of what it takes from the time of initial notification. So activity tracking ensures the deployment process is efficient, accurate, and compliant with the Air Force regulations standards. This includes the time from the item selection, order processing, shipping preparation, inventory management, labeling and documentation, and tracking. By analyzing the data collected through activity tracking, we can identify the bottlenecks and areas for improvement and the opportunities to streamline the pack out operations based off of that tracking board. Our next question, will dimensions for custom tire racks be included? Are they larger than one pallet? The main landing gear tire on the B52 is approximately 56 inches. The custom tire rack is not larger than the one pallet. The tire rack will likely go on a 463 pallet, a standardized military pallet used by Department of Defense. So it will be no larger than that, which again is 108 by 88 inches. Our next question, what are the bottlenecks that the Air Force has identified that are leading contributors to the delays and leading to the 14-day packing time? Some of those would include, the bottlenecks include asset availability at the time of the buildup, which causes us to reconfigure the loadout, upon arrival. The other problem is we face having to manually build the pallets and kits to ensure we are trying to maximize our space. We're not allowed to keep the kits as is. Once built, until we can place the item in deployed status, the assets cannot be touched. We need real-time configurations for in-place building and alternate loadouts, projecting those assets that may come in after later to configure those or reconfigure those pallets. Next, are there any hazmat considerations such as accessibility? Yes, accessibility for hazmat items must be considered for inspection. Inspectors and personnel responsible for safety checks must have easy access to the containers and materials to ensure compliance of the regulations and to perform necessary inspections based off those assets that are going to be on the manifest. In addition to the previous question, does it need to generate paperwork like manifest or HASDEX? Yes, a packing list will need to be generated to identify the list of assets that are included on the 463L pallet or the ISU 90s. However, the development does not need to generate paperwork like HASDEX, as that's already provided by a section within the government. Will flyaway bins be used, or could we assume they are available? I would like to throw out there for additional clarification as far as that, as far as what references as far as flyaway bins, but the use of flyaway bins and availability can vary depending on specific military operation, deployment scenario, and the equipment being used for that. But for additional clarification as far exactly what that question is asking us as well would be helpful. And the next question, how valuable is the time to pack versus space during packing? The ideal balance between the time efficiency and space utilization often depends on specific goals and the constraints of the operation. Time efficiency is crucial when the tight deadlines or rapid deployment are needed. However, rapid deployments is not necessary for the majority of the time. Therefore, efficient use of space is essential for optimizing transportation and storage capacity. The goal is to maximize space utilization so the Air Force can reduce our pallet allocations and the overall deployment footprint and the transportation costs that it takes to have those additional pallets. And the last question here, why don't commercial solutions work for you? There are no specific reasons why commercial solutions may or may not work for us. This process here is for us to identify what solutions will best, or to become aware of the solutions that will best fit our problem here. So we're utilizing this opportunity to work with the team to identify what that solution could possibly be commercially. As of right now, that is all the questions that we have on our list. Prepare for follow-up questions.
Thank you very much, gentlemen, for giving us that information. It was very helpful. We do have some questions here that have come in through Q&A. The first one is, it says, are you looking specifically at spares parts, or would it apply to tools or other Air Force assets? And again, you feel free to not answer if you feel uncomfortable, or to answer as you see fit.
At this time, specifically spare parts.
Okay, excellent. Another question has come in. Are you interested in tracking of assets, or just the process of packing up and shipping RSPs?
At this time, just the packing and shipping.
Excellent. The question is, can you explain more how this is accurately done today? We don't know what this refers to. So whoever put that question, please restate your question, so that I'm sure it made sense at the time, but now that we moved on, just restate your question and we'll come back to it here in a minute so that the folks answering know what you're talking about.
Hey, Cody, we know
Yes.
the answer to that. We
Oh,
understand.
okay, fire away, fire away.
At this time, everything is done manually. So we get the packing list of what assets are going to, or what maintenance wants to bring on the deployment, and everything is built up manually. So the goal is to simplify that process of not having to do everything manually.
Yeah, that makes sense. There's two more questions I'll read, but I'll just say real quick for the companies that are on here. Again, a reminder, this is your shot to speak to the actual subject matter expert. So if you have a question you're considering asking, now's a great time. We've only got two more, and once all the questions have been asked, we'll begin to wrap up. The current one I see, can you provide specifics on the expected performance metrics or technical constraints that the software solution must meet?
So the answer to this question is what we're expecting in terms of performance metrics is to be able to have the software identify the easiest loadout solution. So we're just still more concerned on the optimization speed, on the optimization piece aspect of it. I mean, I think that would be on the company in terms of maybe the technical constraints, but we're looking more so to make sure that our entire space is utilized with the 463Ls and the ISU 90s.
And to clarify that, in the overall solicitation, it also has the time parameters that they're looking at obtaining. So even though they're looking at optimizing, the solicitation says they want to get the process down to 3 days. So whatever the software solution comes up with way the manpower can build, that's the goal that they're trying to get down to.
Very good. In the deployed location, do you plan to retain the items in their present position, i.e. in the ISU 90s, and work from them, or will they be broke down and stored elsewhere, or will it be on a case-by-case basis?
That would be by a case-by-case basis.
Okay, very good. Do you have to make trade-off decisions for what to include in an RSP? For example, if you're out of space, how do you determine what goes in the RSP and what stays back?
Yes, I mean, so normally we would add another pallet in the event that we're under a particular pallet constraint. We'll just get with maintenance and headquarters to identify priority for those assets.
Very good, thank you. What are the critical data sources and data interfaces that the software solution should integrate with?
The software solution should be able to identify the list of items that we give it and be able to actually have those predefined packing dimensions with it to meet the needs of building up those ISUs and 463Ls. So just being able to say, hey, NSN 1 weighs 50 pounds and is 10 by 10 by 10, and be able to functionally put that in the right space in terms of with all the other NSNs.
Very good. We have more questions are rolling in. Can you say a bit more about your statement, I think, that the assets can't be touched until deploy time? What does this process look like?
So currently we have a packing requirement time that is not in line with deliverable time, just due to how we operate. So there may be instances where we may have 500 assets that we are asked to take and may be able to deliver on 450 of those. But in that time, those 450 may go down to 400 if our customers here still need those assets until we can actually put it in a don't touch it status.
Okay, next question. What interface would be appropriate for the software tool? A tablet used at the point of loading?
For this specific question, this is where we would like the company to provide us the information as far as what is the best solution going forward for our problem.
Yep, very good. Did I hear you want to complete the buildup process within 3 days? Is this the buildup time from the time you're tasked to build it?
Yes, the overall goal is to get it down to 3 days. Absolutely.
And the follow-up question was, is this the buildup time from the time you first received the task?
Yes, from the time of the initial notification that we are going to be in deploy status.
Okay, very good. This is the last, okay, another one's come in. So we're down to 1 or 2 questions. Do you have any specific algorithms or methodologies in mind for maintenance and load planning that need to be incorporated into the software?
For this particular question, the primary considerations, kind of touched on it with the questions initially, are the hazmat type items to identify exactly where those assets are located for the inspection process.
Very good. Should the optimization extend to the process of pulling parts as well? For example, pull these parts in this order. If so, do you have information on how and where these parts are currently stored?
For this question, to put them in order, but not as far as pulling those assets.
Okay, and just the follow-up is, do you have information on how and where these parts are currently stored? Would you like to reply to that?
Nothing unique about these assets. They're stored in our warehouses.
Very good. What would you consider to be the major delaying aspect for the process that would be a big rock that we could fix for you?
The overall intent is to have a solution developed to where the capability of whatever airman does not have to truly think as far as this asset needs to go in a specific location. The goal is to have the solution think for us, basically, in simplified terms, instead of having depending on that airman and their knowledge of the process to complete it.
Okay. Would it be possible to walk us through how the RSP is prepared from the airman's perspective, i.e., an outline of the steps that they go through?
Yeah, so currently the process right now is we take the itemized list of parts that we're preparing to take for deployment, and we give them the computations of what we're trying to take, and we have a team that looks at all of these assets, and we pretty much play Tetris with it right now. So they'll take a couple parts, put it on a pallet, make sure it fits, and then kind of plug and play and hope that we're maximizing our space to the best of our ability right now. So once we do that, from start to finish, however long that process takes, it's a lot of plug and play. It's not like we take all these assets and build this up in one day and hope that it works out. There's a time consuming process that goes with that in terms of making sure that these parts fit on a pallet the way that they need to fit, and hope that we utilize our space the right way.
Okay, very good. Looks like I have one more question at this time. Are there any conditions for part types to be packed with each other?
Oh, yeah. So yeah, right now, sorry, the conditions of the boxes that we have that contain these parts uh, needs to be configured for the ISU 90s. We can't put them on 463Ls just due to weather conditions. Or cardboard boxes, correct? Yes, cardboard boxes. My apologies. So those will have to stay inside the ISU 90s, and then we have some assets that are in wooden crates. That may or may not fit inside the ISU 90s, but for the most part, we've been putting those assets on the 463L pallets.
Okay, just had another question come in. Are the pallets stacked up with consideration of the headroom available in the plane, or all the same?
Hey, how you doing? I'm Nick Musgrove. I work with SBCC. I also am an aerial port expert. So the pallets are not stacked on top of each other. They are basically end to end down the entire pallet. No pallet is ever stacked on top of each other inside of an aircraft. So one pallet is sitting right next to another one in a row.
Are container types identified in the given information?
Which container exactly?
Yeah, so as a question back to the questioner to clarify which container. We'll pause for a moment for the questioner to rephrase the question. Cardboard versus wooden crate is what they say. Are container types identified in the given information? Cardboard versus wooden crate.
So each NSN has a what we call a special packaging instruction, and those are utilized through the in one of the questions we talked about. We can find those in either Fed log or Spires, and then assuming those are down, there are like we said before, commercial websites such as Logging Quest that we may tap into if we can't find particular dimensions if those systems are down.
So in short, yes, the packing material and the dimensions are kept in those systems. So it will tell you whether or not it's a cardboard box or a wooden crate.
Okay, those are all the questions I have. Probably one or two will come in as I'm adding a few final comments here. And if they do, I'll certainly ask those. Do want to say, you have another minute or two before we close this out. If you have questions you think of later, you've got 24 to 48 hours to email them in to us directly. Starting September 20th, the DSIP process is what you're going to have to go through to get questions answered. And frankly, if they're sent now, I don't know if we'll get them to the SMEs in time, but we'll certainly do our best. And if not, we'll be sure it gets pushed over to DSIP. So yeah, feel free to send the questions asked which email address to use. And feel free to send it to Cody, CODY .ray, RAY at smallbcc.com. Thank you, Joel. Cody.ray at smallbcc.com. And for what it's worth, if you want to go to smallbcc.com, that is our company website. There is a join our network button that you can hit. In just a few seconds, you can add your company's information, add it to our database. And when there are future questions or specific topics that need RSP solutions, then you will be there ready to go. And we may have follow-up calls with you. But if you would like to do that, just know that's available to you as a part of this commercial capabilities integration effort that the Air Force is getting after. No other questions have come in yet. So I do want to say truly thanks to Master Sergeant Gibson and Sergeant Jones for taking your time out to help these companies understand the questions. And to the companies, thank you for coming. Really look forward to working with you and to help your company grow and help our military become more efficient and more effective. With that, we'll conclude this meeting, and thank you all again very much.